Okay, so if you have not shared with your friends yet, do share it. And we are starting this session now. So, hey everyone, welcome to the episode 2 of our Tech Sprint X LDC Hackathon Expert Series. Today we have an amazing session lined up with Srushti Raybhoge ma'am. She is Google developer expert as well as software engineer too, and LinkedIn top voice, and speaker at numerous dev fest also. And as you all know, we have currently in our ideation phase of our Tech Sprint XLDC hackathon, and using at least one Google technology is mandatory. So this session is the perfect opportunity to learn and practical tips that will help you to not just for this hackathon, but also in future internships as well as projects. So without further, I would like to hand over to you, Srishti ma'am.
I hope I'm audible, right?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. So thank you for introducing me. I'll share my screen. Yeah, okay. So as shall we introduce that we'll be learning one of the Google technologies, which is Firebase. Our session for today is Firebase hands-on workshop. Like she said, I am a Google developer expert in Firebase. I'm also a software engineer too at Adepa, which is a fintech company, and we deal into investment and portfolio management. Apart from tech, I love to read books. I love to travel. And if you have any queries, maybe during the session or later on the session, you can just connect me on LinkedIn. Okay, so let's begin with the very basic question, like as to why Firebase. So we all know that Firebase is a backend service, and let's first go and understand which all services Firebase provides, so that we'll understand why use Firebase better. So first is you don't need any backend system, or you don't need to write any backend code. For example, you don't need to have an authentication system if you are using Firebase. You can directly use their predefined functions. You can link your mobile apps, your web apps, etc. directly to Firebase, and you can use only the front end application. You don't need to have a separate backend server or separate backend application. There are many different functionalities that Firebase gives us. So we'll go through all the functionalities one by one, and then we will play around a few. The first functionality will start with authentication. So it's very simple. Whenever we have any application, the first thing that we think of is the security, which how many people can log in into it, what is the ways that a person can log in into it. So in Firebase, we have a number of different providers are basically ways a user can log in into our system. The very commonly used is obviously Google. So nowadays every other site has the Google, Facebook, or the GitHub. If it is any other like Coursera, Udemy, such sites have even GitHub account authentication. So you can use that. All you need to do is add the authentication and then enable the services. They have also added phone-based authentication, where you can add using the phone number as well. Then and then there's anonymous. So anonymous is basically whenever you say that I want to log in through anonymous, but I still want to keep some of the data only for logged in users. So Firebase will then share a link to the user saying that, okay, this is a verified user, not some bot or some other scaper or something like that. So this is the way where you can use the anonymous login as well. So templates are basically whenever Firebase says that I want to, when you say that, send a mail to the user. So for example, password reset email. So you can say that, okay, so this is the sender name, then it should go from my app email ID. Then what should be the subject, or what should be the message. So you can edit this. For example, don't want to write something hello. Want some customized. Oh, you forgot. I want to add some meme. I can do that over here. Then you can add a customized link. If you have a different hosting site, you can add a customized link as well over here. Then for example, some usually it is from no reply, but if you want to have some of your own email IDs, you can add over that, or own domain, you can add it over here. So these are just templates for different emails. So there is an email address change template, so you can edit over here. So you have this customization also. You don't need to have these templates stored in the backend. Then usage is something tracking the so each backend service has to have some log, have some kind of like monitoring system where we can track, okay, how many users have logged in, how many users are active. So using this usage features or tab, you can check, okay, so I have 2 3 users logged in daily, or maybe a new user came in today. So you can track that. You don't need to have any separate code in your front end or in a backend system. So settings are basically what actions you need to take. So for example, here what I'm doing, if I use different methods, for example, I use a email and password and I also use Google login, but using the same email ID, so it will link it to the same email ID. But then if the sometimes it some of the sites have this feature as well, where if you use an email and password you have a different account, but sometimes, and if you just use your Google email directly through Google login, it will have a different account. So you can change the settings over here, you can have it as per your requirement. Then there are user actions. For example, I can just create, I cannot delete, something like that. So you can change it over here. Now some of these features are in the paid plan, some of these features are not accessible if you are using a free trial, but depending upon your use case, then you can buy the plans or use then and enable these features. So then you have sign in quota, so how many users can sign in per day, or maybe this. Then password policies. So now right now I don't have any password policies, but most of the time we have these, that you need minimum 6 characters, you need minimum 8 characters, there should be a numeric, uppercase, lowercase, a special character, etc. Then you can enable this. But then you also have to make sure that you add these, maybe just a safety check in the front end, and also give the user information that, okay, your password should have these will be checked on these particular parameters. So make sure that you enter a password which satisfies these all conditions. Else what will happen is the user will have no knowledge of what conditions are there in your backend, and then he will just try some random passwords and it will fail. So once these conditions are enabled, you don't have to write the code for checking the password. Whenever you use the Firebase predefined functions, it will check, okay, whenever a user is sending me a password, does these satisfy the conditions that are specified for my app or my settings. It will check it for itself and then return a true or false, maybe a logged in response to your front end or back end, whichever service you're using. You don't have to have these checks at all. So this is an overview of authentication. Since we are going to use authentication, I'm giving a deeper dive into it, but once we start using, you'll understand it better. Then we have the extensions feature. So extensions is very simple. What does an extension do? For example, Chrome extension is going to help you do some add-on functionality. For example, you have a extension which will increase the speed of video I'm playing, decrease the speed. So extensions are similar in Firebase. I'll show an actual example. I have a project which has extensions. Yeah, so in this, so there are a number of extensions that Firebase or Google team has already given to us. We can just download it into a project and use those. There is also an option where we can create our own extensions and make it open source so that other people can use. And what the extensions are, very basic functionalities. For example, here I'm using a chatbot extension which is using Gemini APIs. So in this, I don't need to write the code for having a Gemini API, then having the keys for Gemini API, integrating the APIs and do anything. The extension will handle that thing for me. Same here, multimodal task. This is a extension which will analyze the image that I give it and give me the description or the information of the image. So these two functionalities, I can directly use it in my application. I don't need to sit around and play over building these applications. So extension is it basically gives us ready-made functions and ready-made functionalities to use. Now, Firebase has 3 types of database, which is majorly used. One is the Firestore database, the real-time database, and the storage. So storage is used to store multimedia data, so images or your videos, etc. Once you start the project and you upload some file, it is going to give you link of that files, which you can download or see or view, save in your application. So it can be a user profile, your other images, what you want to store over here. Firestore and real-time database. Then we'll dive in the difference. We'll see the difference and dive into this later on, because we are actually going to use it in our application. We'll just skip it for now. Then functions are very similar. If you have heard the AWS Lambda, so what does the is very similar to that. So functions are basically backend code that you don't have to actually, need a backend service to. If you have any small code that you want to run on the server, for example, user checks or user information checks and something like that, and you don't want to build a separate backend system, then you can use functions over here. So you just need to add a simple function, and then it will run whenever you trigger it. So in this case, the extensions have had some pre-built functions. I'll show you so you can understand it better. Yeah, so these are the functions and the triggers you can see. So whenever my database is updated or something new is added, for example, if an image is added into gallery, then the multi-model extension is going to get triggered, which will run the image, get the information of the image and show me on the front end, or it will add it into database. So these are functions. So you can add similar triggers on your database, or maybe similar triggers on when you have some Firebase events, etc. So you can see that these are kind of event triggers or code that runs based on some requirement that you have. Then hosting is what you want to host your application, a single static web page, you can do it over here. Then machine learning. So machine learning is also similar to extensions, but extensions is like something which is an add-on. In machine learning, if you have some like you want to run text recognition or image labeling or face detection, any machine learning models that you want in your application, but you don't want to sit and build an entire ML application and then have it on a front end or have it on a back end, you can use these. So it's very simple. You have some like I'll show you the basic documentation or some code. It is going to create an object for that particular machine learning. So if it is an Android system, you need to include obviously the packages, the dependencies, etc. And then when you use it in the code, you can just use the object for that text recognition. And then, for example, this is a recognizer, the text recognizer. So then use that object, like read the object, read the image, then pass it to the recognizer, then check what the recognizer gives you as an output. And then you can show it in the front end. So the use case over here is you don't need to sit and build an entire text recognition model, since these are built on Google models and most of these use some Gemini models or maybe the other Vertex AI models, etc. They are very good. So you don't have to worry of the accuracy. You don't have to worry of, okay, how much does my server is costing to run these models. You just need to check what use case you have. If it is a very small use case or some small projects which get handled with the free tier, you can use it. If you want to have a long, like huge user base, and you need to upgrade it to your maybe a Blaze plan or other cost pricing that you have it over here. So you don't need to worry of even the having hosting it somewhere or having the getting the models trained, etc., etc. So run is basically when you, so for example, if someone has to A/B testing. So if you understand what A/B testing is, A/B testing is when I need to divide my user base into 2 or 3 parts and then test, like, okay, I have one UI which is a very pretty UI, beautiful UI in blue color, and there's some other UI which is in a green color. I want to test which is a better UI for my user base. Then I can do an A/B testing over there. So what happens in this is randomly people are divided, and then you can check the results. So A group can see a blue color UI, a B group can see the green color UI, and you can get the results on this based on some events that you add in your app, based on the testing IDs and based on the testing user group. You can see, okay, so blue group was able to perform faster. The journeys, for example, if I'm doing it in a cart system where you user sees the item, then adds it to the cart and buys it. So a blue color journey was a bit faster, and people have used could navigate easily. So then you can understand, okay, so a blue color journey is performing better, I can use it in my app more extensively. So that is what A/B testing is done for. Then app distribution is when you want to do like distribute an app for testing to some most of the UAT testing, that is user acceptance testing, which is done internally. If you have a cohort of users of maybe 10 email IDs which test the app, then you can send it through this easily. You don't. So what we do in colleges, we make the APK files and then share the APK files, which is not actually very secure. So through Firebase, you can just say, okay, add these email IDs and send my APK or whatever file my app to these people once I upgraded to version 1, version 2. So automatically they will get a notification and email, okay, this version is released, you can test it in a pre-release version. So this is very helpful when you have a proper application deployed in production and you have a different user testing groups. Crash analytics is obviously when your app crashes, you get the logs over here. You need to have some predefined functions in your app and you'll get the logs. Why my app crashed, what is the file that the error is in, etc. Messaging is sending out campaigns, running messages, the notifications that you get from different apps. For example, Zomato sends you a notification, are you craving for any biryani? So they are going to run, you can run the campaigns through this. You can give different parameters to a campaign as well. Performance is testing the performance and seeing how good or well your app performs. If there are issues, obviously, since I don't have any app in production, I don't have an SDK which will show the tracking, but you can check the performance over here. Maybe I'll have the let's see if this shows the performance. Okay, so you can check the performance of your app screen wise, or if you have any journeys defined in app, you can check it through that as well. Okay, so events are also, for example, I want to see how many users have clicked the login button. So I can add an event on the login button, and each event is then reflected over here with a gap of 12 to 24 hours. And then you can see how many users have clicked the login button. What is the, if there was any failure on the click, then you can understand that. You can see, okay, from login, the user has gone to home page, but then the user has not gone to the next page. The user has not searched anything. So there was a drop off from login to home page. So you can understand that when you have events, when you have a proper journey setup. Then remote config is very helpful when you need dynamic UI changes. And this, so the difference between A/B testing and remote config is A/B testing, you can divide the cohorts into different percentage. For example, I want 10% for a blue group and 90% for a green group. So that you can do. In remote config, it's like whatever changes you want to. So for example, I want to show, since it's New Year, I want to show New Year UI. So I'll write, okay, enable the New Year UI. And then in my app or in my website, I have this code where it will read, okay, is New Year true? It will check. If it is true, it will show a New Year UI. If it is false, it will show the old normal UI. So what will happen is once I say it's true, it will reflect to all users, whoever is on that particular version of my code. And then, for example, after 5-6 days, when the new year offers are over, when the new year is settled down, everyone is back to normal life, I can just say, is New Year false? The entire UI is going to get back to normal. So you can handle the UI from here. You don't need to release an version every time. You don't need to release new code every time. It is very good when you have ads, when you have code or UI where you have the changing UI. Where Zomato, Swiggy, if you see, they have this beautiful home pages on different events, on different festivals, etc. So you can configure that over here. Okay, so everything, so the analytics part is where, since I showed you earlier, we have crash analytics, we have events. Depending upon how the different functionalities are used in Firebase, analytics will show you how well your app is performing, if there are any errors, or if there are any crashes, or like any journeys that you have defined, how, if your user is dropping off on home page or maybe on search page, you can check it through these different functionalities. We'll not dive into deep in this. Then recently, Firebase has come up with 2 AI features. So we can say this is an AI first features of Firebase. The first is AI. So in AI, you can see is you can directly use Gemini APIs to build your AI logic on Firebase. So like I said, you don't need to have a separate backend servers. And if you want to run any AI application, AI model, you can do it over here. Then you have GenKit. So GenKit is an AI framework. Very simple to say is, if I want a structured input and structured output, or maybe if I want to just use the AI application, I don't want to actually build an AI model, I can use GenKit. So what GenKit will do is, I just have to tell that, okay, this is my input. I have a string which is in language, and then give me an output which says hello in this particular language. So GenKit is going to just take the input. It is whichever model. So GenKit has a ability where you can select the model you want. So different Gemini models, any other model that you want, you just need to select it. And then GenKit is going to give you output in the structure way that you want. So you don't have to handle the different model integrations. You don't have to worry about the backend code, the model code, the AML code, etc. All you need to do is integrate Jenkit with Firebase, and it is going to work fine. I have a Jenkit example here so that you can understand it better. So you can also check what the success rate of my Jenkit application is. So in this particular application, I have this anime prediction feature. So what I have to do is, okay, I used to say that, okay, give me an anime which is of the action genre or maybe adventure genre, which has a rating of greater than 9. So every time I don't need to have this prompt again and again. I just define that rating is an X variable, genre is an Y variable. And I'll take the user input for X and Y variable, and I'll say, okay, now run the AI model through the database, and then give me the output. So you don't need to worry of handling this code. You just need to worry of writing a good prompt, giving the inputs, and then getting the output in a structured way. So writing a structured output prompt as well. Maybe in the later on sessions, we can go dive into Jenkit very deep. But before that, we need to understand how we can use the database and authentication system. So this is the boilerplate code to what we are going to do today. I want everyone to just scan this repository, go to the link and fork the projects into your particular in your machines. If you face any issues, just raise your hand or put down in chat so that we know that someone is facing any issues. I'll share the repository link as well. So you can fork your project over here and then type the repository name that you want. Then if you have multiple owners, multiple projects in your GitHub, you can change it. And then description, and just keep only copy the master branch and then create a fork. This will going to create a copy in your own GitHub accounts. You can also clone it if you want, no issues, but just don't push any code over here. I hope everyone is with me. If you have any queries or if you're, let me know once you have forked the project, then clone it to your local machines. So today we're going to play around, like we'll add some functionality in our local machines. We'll check how it works on the local host. Then we are going to also play with Firebase Studio. So Firebase Studio is like open the project. So it's like a cloud IDE, cloud-based IDE, where you can write projects, write code very easily. You don't even have to write code. The entire project is built for me using Firebase Studio. I have not written like a single line of code in the repository that I have shared with you. So let's try a few things in the local machines first. I hope everyone is cloning. Okay. So I can see a few folks have said they have forked the projects. Great. So, okay. Just do npm install wherever you have forked or cloned a project. Do npm install first. By the time the packages are getting installed, what we're going to do, just type Firebase console. And then go to the Firebase console over here. Okay. So you can see something like this. Okay. So once you are here, let me know if my speed is fast. If you want me to slow down, if you're facing any errors, issues, just raise your hand or drop down in the chat. Yeah. So once you are in the console, create a new Firebase project. You can give any project name that you want. So maybe we'll say this is a Firebase basics workshop. Then click continue. Let this be enabled. It's fine. So let this be enabled. This you need to off. The Google Analytics projects, you can off this. We don't use it, we don't need it right now, so just off this and then click create project. So by the time the project is getting created, I'll show you how the project is going to look like. So I don't even need to do any it's going to do the code for me. Also in Firebase Studio right now, I've given it agent mode. I can change the mode, give it all the permissions, and it is going to write the code for me. Since I don't want AI to do everything for me unless it's validated by me, I usually avoid giving it all read and write permissions. I usually give it permissions like be an agent for me, don't write the code for me. So you can change, if you want, you can change the permissions from here. I'm just showing you how the app will look like so that you can understand. So once a so just ignore the UI, we'll just concentrate on the functionalities. So if you see, I have this, yeah. So what we have is we have a login where I'm going to use the, so I have already created one user. I will create I can use Google sign in. I can do a forgot password. I can do a sign up, and with email ID and password, I will log in. Once I've logged in, I have few items added to my user ID. I can see who is logged in. I can see what email ID the user is logged in. With manage profile, I can edit my name. So for example, if I change my name to full name, so it will get easily changed. With home also, you can see it's quickly reflected over here. Then I can add an item. Let's say I am maybe Peaky Blinders. I can say series. I can just add. So this list is going to get appended. I can delete the list, etc. So this is what we're going to build today. And then sign out, I'm going to go back to the home page without any user logged in. Okay. So I hope everyone has this project created. Just continue and then you'll go to the home page of your app. So this, okay. Is everyone on the same page? Have you created a Firebase project? Okay. So the very good part that Firebase did this year is we have the Gemini in Firebase. So if you were working with Firebase a few years back, it was for me, it was very difficult because I have to, refer documentation, I have to refer some YouTube videos to, check how to integrate this functionality, how to do this thing, how to change anything in Firebase. But now they have Gemini in it. So I can ask Gemini questions very quickly. I can do everything in one tab. So this is very good functionality that you can explore. Okay, so now first thing you need to do is add an app to your Firebase. So this is a basic Firebase project. This will not have, so whenever you want to add any app or whenever you want to use the Firebase, you need to add your application. So you have different options to add over here. So since we are building a web app, we are going to select web. If you have an Android app, you have to select Android, iOS, etc. etc. So let's start with web. You can give any nickname that you want. So for me, I'm saying TikTok, because I want to, add the series or the animes or whatever books I have read. I just want to add it over here. So I'm just saying that, okay, these are the items that I've ticked off. So we are going to skip Firebase hosting for now and just register our app. So what this is doing, this app is going to give me credentials for my, which I can use in my application. So since this is a web app, it has saying that, okay, you need to install this and then you need to use these keys. the script, if you have, if you're you want don't you know if you're not using an npm, you're just using simple html javascript files, then you can use the script model as well. So just say continue to console. You can get these keys later. If you want, you can copy the keys for now. Once you are back to console, you can see you have one app integrated, or one app which is linked with this particular project. You can have multiple apps. So right now it's just website, but you can link other applications as well. You don't need to worry of creating a separate backend for different systems. So in build, then go to authentication, get started. Okay, so I hope everyone is with me and you have the web app created in a Firebase. If you're using Firebase for the first time, if it's a first project, it might take some time to create a project, then have the web app linked. So in authentication, you need to go into sign-in method. So whenever you want to start with any Firebase service, you need to enable that service. So I have get started with authentication. Now in authentication, I want to enable different providers. So I need to do is select first. I'm going to select email password. Just say enable. We'll skip the password list because I want an email password. Then I'll say save. Some issue with my project creation. Okay, I'll use the already created project. Okay. So in sign-in method, once you have this, just click the enable and then click save. Then next is click Google. So in Google, you need not worry if you want any, just select the support email that you want. So by default, it will show the email ID that you have logged in. If you have some other email ID that you want, you can add it over here. I'm going to use the same email ID. So this is the safe list. So whenever you're using Google authentication, it is going to give you a pre-built code, pre-built functionality that it is going to check. So it will check from which base URL the user is logging. So right now localhost is safe list. So whenever I'm testing it in my localhost, it is going to allow. If you want to add any other safe URLs or any other client IDs, you can do it over here. And then click save. Okay. So my users, I have already used two email ID. You can see one is using the email password and one is using the Google. Each user is going to get a unique user ID. So whenever you log in, this user ID is returned from Firebase to my application. So if I want to use these user IDs anywhere in my application, I can do that. So once you have enabled this, now go to your code. Now, I hope everyone has enabled the Firebase authentication functionality. If you're facing any issues, try to create the project again. Do not change any locations or any database like location areas. If they ask you, just keep it everything as default. Don't change anything, and you can try to create a project again and then work on it. So once you have all the sign-in methods enabled, you can come back to your code. Once you have all the code, you can see your npm packages are all installed and fine. So in code, you can see you have this source folder. In source folder, you have firebase.js. In firebase.js, this Firebase config. So I want to add the keys in this Firebase config. That keys you will find, go to your homepage, Firebase homepage, in project view. So this is a project overview in project settings. So there is a settings icon in project settings. Just scroll down. In that you have this npm and you need this keys. So these are the keys. Do not copy my keys, use your own keys, because it is not, if you use mine, it is going to fail. So don't do that. Then add the keys in the Firebase config. So what the keys are going to do is basically they're going to create a connection. You can see this initialize app, right? So this is going to create a connection of yours application with the Firebase. So this you can see it has the app name, the project ID, the other like my other authentication API keys, etc., etc. So it is going to create a connection, and these connections are going to be used for each Firebase application or each Firebase functionality that you're going to use. So once you have the keys added to this, now, whenever you're using a Firebase functionality, you need to initialize it. So first I initialize Firebase. What I'm going to do is I'm saying, okay, this app is going to has the entire Firebase linked to my application. Then next is I want to use auth. So I'm going to create an object for auth, and then from the app, I just going to fetch the auth. So what is going to do is going to get me all the pre-built functionalities for authentication into this object, which I'm going to later on use in my code. So you need to, so this is the code for that. So if you see here, you can see what returns an auth instance, and then it has everything that you want to use in this particular instance. So next is in login page. So you see, I've commented a few of code. So we'll go step by step. First, if you see the actual HTML code, now this is a React application. So this is a JXX file. So in the HTML code, you will see there is an input for email, there is an input for password. Then there are two buttons. One is login, one is sign up. And then there is a login in Google. And then there is obviously a link to forget password. So let's go step by step. We'll start with sign up and login. So sign up is when the user is a first time user. Obviously, if I don't have my user information, like the email and password on Firebase, it is going to say, okay, the user does not exist. For that, I first need to sign up. And then once I have signed up successfully, then I can log in. We'll start with changing the sign up code. If you see the email sign up function, just go over there. So there is a predefined check, like, okay, just check if it is email empty or not. Uncomment this code. Now this is a pre-built function the Firebase gives me. What this does is create user with email and password. All this function takes is, if you hover over it, you can see it takes an auth, then it takes an email and password. That's it. And it will return me a promise whether the user creation was successful, whether the email and password satisfied all the conditions that you have added, whether user was created, and then with the user credential is going to give me the email ID, the UUID that we saw, the unique user ID that we saw, and the display name. So usually if you are using an email password, the display name is your email itself. But if you're using other providers, for example, if I'm using Google, then it will give you the Google name that you have. So for example, if your Google profile has Srushti Raybhoge, it is going to return the display name as Srushti Raybhoge. If your Google profile has some other email, so it is going to return you that particular name. But by default, if there is nothing, it is going to return you the email ID itself. So this is the code for your auth. It's very simple. You don't even need to write the code for, checking the email, checking the password, adding it to your database, creating a UUID, then returning it to your front end. You don't need to worry about that. Everything is handled by this function. So I have signed in successfully. What I'm doing is I'm using Redux into this. So I'm going to just save the user information for my entire application to access it. So I'm saving the information in an unique, like a root level store, or maybe a root level state, which we are using Redux over here. So I'm saving the email ID, the UUID, the display name. And I'm navigating to home. Okay, now it's successful. Just go to home page. If there is an error, I'll show it through the error. Now we'll also uncomment the sign up code. Okay, so the user is created successfully. Now what I'm doing is I need to sign in. Like first time I've signed up, I've gone to the home page, everything is successful. The next time I come in, I already have a user created. So I'm going to use this sign in with email and password. It is very similar to create. You just need to send the auth. Auth is the object that we have created. So this is going to have this will have the app credentials, what functionality you have enabled in my app. Everything is in the auth object. So you need to pass that auth object, then the email, the password. And then again, you will get the successfully logged in user details, and then we are navigating to home. So just uncomment this code. And once we say npm run dev, so your application will be run on different local hosts. Just check the port that you're getting over here. For me, the port is 5173. Most probably for everyone, it will be 5170, but a lot of time it is also 3000 or maybe 4000. Okay. So you will see by default my app is getting on the login page because I don't have any user created over here, or I have never logged in through the local host. That is handled using my route. Yeah. So if you see, these are the routes. If I don't have any logged in user, like if there is no user in my root level application, then go to the default login page. If I have a user, then go to home page. Similarly, other routes are also configured in a similar fashion. Okay, so we have done sign up and login. Let me try by adding like random email to see if it allows me, which is not there on my app. If you see, this email was never there on my application. If I say login, it is going to say, okay, the operation is not allowed. There is some authentication error over here. I hope everyone has added the Firebase credentials and are now have uncommented the code, and everyone is working on the local host. Just say yes or no if you're still facing any issues. Okay. So now I want to add this user. I will just say sign up. My email ID was wrong, so it never found the email ID. That's why it threw an error. Now I am creating a default user and I say sign up. You can see I've already logged in, and as soon as I've signed up, you will see that the user is going to get reflected here. It didn't even take a second or so. As soon as I got a successful response, there was a new user added. Similar, you will also see it in your applications. Try the sign in feature and let me know if you can see your user in your application. You'll also see a UUID over here. Okay, few of them are saying yes. Now, similarly, you can sign out and log in with the same user. Okay, now we'll uncomment the functionality for sign in, Google sign in. Okay, so just uncomment the functionality for Google sign in. This also has a pre-built function which is sign in with pop-up, but here the difference is we are not using email and password. We are using a provider. We are using some third-party provider, for example, Google, for example, GitHub, Facebook. So for that, you need to initialize the provider first. So here we have Google Auth provider. This is again a Firebase functionality which is you are going to import in from Firebase Auth. Now these packages, if you see my package.json, you have Firebase over here. Everything is going to be imported from this. So once you say Google Auth, you have all the functionalities or everything in that package. And then you're going to get Google Auth provider from there, the provider, and then pass the provider to this. So what this provider is going to do is going to have the information, the functions, functionalities, checks that it is going to run on your auth, the data details that you're going to share. Just uncomment this, save the code, and rebuild your app, because this is not going to hot reload your app. You need to rebuild it again. And now you can just try it with Google sign in. So let's see, I've gone to Google. And here you don't even have to implement some extra button or something. You just need to one click of button, you have the entire functionality. So if I say I have this email ID, I just sign in. I give all the continue, I accept the conditions, I allow it. If you're a first time user, it is going to ask you for password, and then I'm signed in. So if you see, this name was already picked because this name is attached with my Google account. This name is going to be shown over here. This is the email ID which I've signed in with, and then you have other details. Okay, so I hope everyone was able to do these three things: the Google, the email ID, and password. Any queries up till here? Or if someone faced any issues, any errors, anything? Okay. Okay, so before we move on, the organizers have a quiz for you, and I know there are some exciting prizes for the winners. I will hand over to the host, to conduct the quiz.
Thank you so much, Srushti. You explained Firebase basics and authentication and the basics in the workshop very well. Now, to see that if our participants have retained that information well or not, we have a small quiz for you all. I would share its screen with you guys.
Kalpana, just a minute.
Yes.
Before we moving forward, I see there's a query in the chat section. Ma'am, can we take it?
Yeah, we can take it. So Jay, I can share my screen again and show. Yeah. Okay. If since this is running on localhost, if you see in your app in the sign in methods in Google Provider, if you click the edit icon, you have to whitelist localhost. So just add the base URL or whatever localhost over here. Here, just add it to your sorry, yeah, add it to your safe list client IDs, so localhost. If this is missing, then it is going to say that the domain is not allowed, because since you're running this on localhost, you never know if it is a bot, if it is a web server. So you need to add it to this. And after that, maybe restart your application and then it is going to work fine. Yeah. I think we can move ahead with the quiz by the time I've
Yes, I'll share the QR code. Meanwhile, if anyone has any queries, drop it in the chat. So at this point, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our hackathon sponsor. As you can see on the screen, TechSprint is proudly sponsored by Slido, which is a platform that's revolutionizing how audiences interact and engage in live sessions and events. So we are deeply grateful to Slido for their support in making this hackathon possible and believing in our mission to nurture tech talent and innovation. Now moving forward, uh, you can see the QR code, you can scan it, and also you can go to the slido.com website and enter this particular code that has been shown on the screen, and you'll join the quiz. Once we have most of the participants there, we will start the quiz. Make sure you don't miss out this quiz, because at the end, for the winners, we have some exciting prizes. So make sure you read every question attentively and answer based on it. Yes, I see most of the people have joined. So can we start? Should we start now? Yes, so shall we, can you please start the quiz now? Yes, so you can see the questions are live and we have the first question on the screen. Great. The first question was Firebase authentication is mainly used for, and most of the participants guessed it right. Well done, guys. So, next question, keep the track of the timer, which is showing on besides the question. So, currently we are on the fourth question, just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Last second question of the quiz. Whoa, I see the audience diverted here. Now, last question upcoming on the screen. Please pay most attention. Perfect. So, 6 on 6 questions have been presented to you, and you, the audience, have answered the questions. Now, shall we reveal the leaderboard, or do you want to guess? But you can't guess as this is an online quiz. So, shall we reveal the leaderboard? Can I see something in the chat from you guys? Yes? Yes, yes. Show me your enthusiasm. Yes. So I hope all of you guys have used your real names, because when we announce the winners here, we want your real names and not your fake dummy names. So I guess we can reveal the leaderboard now. Shall we? So here is the leaderboard, much awaited. The third winner is Parv. Second position goes to Kavin, and the winner is Praveen. So congratulations to all three of you. You have showed your consistent engagement throughout the session, and I hope you are going to take away the great insights after this session. So for all three of you winners, we have Canva Pro for you guys for free. So for the second and third winners, we will be giving away the Canva Pro for a whole 1 month. And for the first winner, that is Praveen, for you, we have the Canva Pro for 3 months. So congratulations to all of you. And I request you three to please put your emails in the chat so we can share the Canva Pro with you. So Praveen, Kavin, and Parv, I'd like to request you guys to drop down your emails in the chat, and we will contact you after the session for the giveaway. So perfect. So now we are done with our quiz session. Now I would like to hand over the session back to Srushti ma'am.
I think there were some great questions in the quiz. Okay, so I saw a question where there was if I want to add a user manually. So you can do it in the users tab and add user over here. I saw some few of them said add document, but it's add user. Okay. So we are now have a login system ready. We are now into the login and we are on the home page. Now I want to show some user data. Let's go to our app. Again, I have commented a few code. I have added some comments where we were going to add a code by our own. So let's start with adding the simple functionality where I want to read the username and then display it on the user, etc. etc. Right now you'll see there are some blank fields over there. Over here, if you see, I have commented the code for get user. So just uncomment that. So I'll explain you. Okay, let's do one thing. Before that, we need to enable the Firebase. Okay, I'll explain you the difference between the two database that we have. So there is real-time database, and then there is Cloud Firestore. So what real-time database does is going to store your data in a JSON tree. So you have a root node, then you have other nodes under it. It is going to be a tree structure. Whereas in cloud storage, it is going to be a document collection. So you have one document which has multiple files in it. Then that file might have another collection, another document in it, and so on and so forth. So it is like both of them are going to be key value pairs itself. Now the limitations and the other features that each of the database has, depending upon what is your use case, which database you want to use where, you can then identify, like if I want to use real-time database, if I want to use cloud firestore, or if I want to use a combination of both. So querying over find like real-time database is very limited. You just have filtering and sort. Whereas Firestore supports powerful querying. So here you can directly have like where and if conditions. The normal like SQL, maybe if I want to say that where ID is equal to ID or something like that, you can do that over in Firestore. Then scaling, Firebase handles scaling for you automatically. You don't need to worry about that. If you want to still have some like indexing on your database or something, you can do it through the settings tab. I'll show you that later. But the difference is here you have automatic scaling. Then you need to do manual sometimes. Then there is vertical scaling, horizontal scaling, depending upon the data structure that you have or the data that you have. Now both of them have offline support. The only difference is Firestore has it in web and real-time database does not have it in web. So you need to check this, or maybe uh, try it with your app, like what is your application, if it is Android, iOS, or it also has web. So depending upon that, you can pick. Now this difference is giving to me Gemini. There are still developments coming up in Firebase, so maybe this difference is not valid now, or maybe it will not be valid later on, but need to be updated with what Firebase is giving you, what your project plan is, what is the user, a number of users that your application has, what is the actual use case. It is just a chatbot, just a or maybe an entire e-commerce platform. Depending upon that, you can pick. Most of the time, if it is a large application, people generally tend to use a combination of both. For example, real-time database will just have the user information, while cloud Firestore will have the data of items, pricings, transactions, etc. Okay, so you can see the performance also. This has a very low latency. This has some latency. Then this is it just works in single region. This works in multiple regions and etc. Then depending upon pricing, so this is charged with how much storage you're using. This is charged with number of operations. So if your application is very operation heavy, read and writes and release a very large number, you tend to use Firestore, and then you tend to upgrade it to your Blaze plan or maybe other plan and then pay accordingly. But there are a few number of operations that are still in free tier, so you don't need to worry if you're building or you're just learning. So that is one good cool feature of Firebase. You don't need to worry for small scale applications at all. You can just work it with your free tier. Then use cases, like I said, depending upon applications, there are different use cases. For chatbots, since it is a very low latency, people generally use real time. For e-commerce, like I give you an example, you need to use Firestore because there are very complex queries for category, pricing, etc., etc. And you can have different collections. So your transaction will go in different collection, your item data will go in different collection, etc. Then there are different examples. You can maybe just take a quick screenshot if you want to work on some projects. You can pick your ideas over here and play around. Okay, so if you understood the difference over here, we'll see why I'm saying that these two databases are different. In this application, we're going to use a combination of both. So in Firestore, I'll show you an example how we are using it. So you can see I have a basic collection which is says ticked off. Now each collection has this are my user ID. So these are the UUIDs that were created when I authenticated. So you can see 4WW is a user ID, your Firestore. Now this I have created manually. So if you see in a project, you will see a get started tab. Now click on the get started. I will maybe try show you the steps on a different project so that you can refer the exact steps. Go in Firestore database. Over there, you need to click. Okay, I'll just see and add it. Okay. Yeah. So you'll see a create a database option over here. Go into standard edition because we are now not working on any enterprise level application. We don't need advanced query. We'll go into standard edition. Click next. This everything should be default. You don't need to worry over here. You can add a database ID. Let me see if I have any. Then keep your location, add any database ID that you want, then click next. So for example, I'm just saying, click next. Now here, always when you're not working on a production level mode, if you go into test mode, what happens is if you're working production level mode, if you see there is read and write access to everything. I don't want to do this. I want to like right now I'm just working on few functionalities. So I'm going to use test mode. In test mode, if you see there are some rules that, okay, you can do everything until this time. And then just click create. So once you click create, you can see you can define your rules over here. So like I said, we can add different rules. You can see right now the read and access is for me until 29th of Jan. So you can change if you want some access, like, okay, only the users who have logged in. So you can say match auth and then allow the read and write. You can get the rules over here. The indexing is if you want to add indexing. By default, there's some indexes are already created, but you still want to add some other level of indexing. For example, I want indexing on the name. If I want the indexing on items, if I want the indexing on transactions, I can add it over here. There are other different parameters that you can add over here. So disaster recovery is, for example, if something fails or something, my database crashes or something is deleted, you can add different disaster recovery points over here. Usage is, again, you can see how many deletes were done, what are the writes, what are the reads, etc. You can see the different analysis of your database, and then you can decide, okay, do I need to upgrade to a good plan? Do I need to pay extra? You can decide over there. Now, once you are here, you can see you will have something like default. If you have kept a default, you'll see a default over here. Then you need to say start collection. So in start collection, for now, you can just add the same ID, maybe TikTok or any collection ID that you want. Once you have added the ID, then over here you need to put the document ID of the user, the first user that you have created. Because what I'm going to do is, now for in this collection, go to the user ID or which user I've logged into, and then pick the items for me. Now in field, you can add items and then click save. So you have a user ID, and then just ignore this item fields for now. Go to user ID. So in this, again, you can have items or fields, or you can have a collection. So field is directly by user ID, I can reference items. But now I want to add a list of items. So I say I'll add collection. The collection ID I can again keep as watched. Okay, I've watched these things. So watched, I'm going to keep the ID. This you can keep as randomly generated. You don't care of what this ID is. The name. So I've recently watched maybe Stranger Things. So you can say Stranger Things, which is very hyped right now. If you want to add any other different fields, you can do that and then click save. So you can see in my ticked collection, you have the user ID. Then user ID has a list of collection again, and then you have watched. So each document has collection, then each collection will have again document. If you add anything here, again, it is going to be a document. So there's a document collection type of thing. I hope everyone is able to do this. Okay, so this is a first database that we worked on. Now in real-time database, so in real-time database, you will see you have this particular, like a tree structure. So if you go and select add, it is going to click and select a key value pair. So you can add a key value pair over here. But every time you will have to reference it through this. So this is your root node, and then you have different nodes under it. So you have to traverse through this tree. Right now, you can do is you can just add users over here. Even if you don't add, it's fine, because the application is going to check, okay, if a user exists, okay, else I'll add a user again, and then I'll add a UUID over here. Okay, okay, now for most of, if you're working for the first time, you will see is a create project option. So click on create project. In create project, again, you can have any project name that you want. I'll just say workshop maybe, and then click continue. Sorry, not create project, you just commented. I'll explain you the code. So later on, maybe you can play. So again, when I want to use, so in users, I'm going to use the real-time database, the root tree structure that we see. So for this, you need a reference point for the database. That reference is the real-time database object, which we have already initialized here. So we have two objects, the Firestore object, the database object. So each functionality is going to have a different connection, different object. And then over here, for that particular database, I'm saying that, okay, take the reference of database. Then my path is the users / user UUID. So this is already stored when I logged in. If you see, I'm already storing the user UUID over here, and I'm referencing, or I'm reading it through the Redux store. So this is basically, I have a root level state of my application, and I have stored the user details over there, and now I'm reading the user over here. So what is going to happen is, once I've logged in, it is going to read, okay, if I have users, then get the user ID from here. And then from that reference, so now this reference is pointing at user ID. Once I have got the successful reference, if you see, the get is going to do is going to check, okay, is it an actual value or if it is a null value? If it is an actual value, it is going to get a snapshot. What the snapshot is basically at that moment, what the data exists in my app. So once the snapshot exists, if the snapshot is got, it is going to read the value and then the value data.name. Now in my application, if you see, I have name stored over here. So if you are storing something else, for example, if you're saying username, then put username over here. If you're saying only name, put only name over here. And it is going to read that. Sometimes if the snapshot, for example, had something like name, then it has first name, last name. So you need to do is value is anything that is linked to this particular URL. So anything that is linked with this reference. So if you have another tree structure, then you will need to do is name dot first name, name dot last name, depending upon your database. Or you can directly add over here also. So for example, I have already username. Maybe I have another level of nesting. So if I had name over here, then I will do name, and then I'll just write over here data dot first name. So depending upon the URL or depending upon the project structure, you need to update the get code. Now before get, we also need to set. Now the reference is going to remain same. Okay, so reference URL is going to remain same. Only instead of get, I'm going to do set. And then in set, if you see, I'm going to pass set save name as name. Reference, I'm going to pass the reference and the name. So name is something that I'm reading. I'm saving. So once, when I'm setting the username, if I'm clicking save, I'm setting it into name. I need to pass it over here. So every user ID, it is going to save name. Now, since here it's just name, what is going to happen is it's going to pick name. In my database, it's going to be saved as name : the data that I'm passing. Okay, so for example, I'm saying Srushti, it is going to get saved as Srushti. But if I say that, okay, name and then pass something else, for example, I'm saying, okay, pass for name, I say, like, say username. So what is going to happen? My key is going to get saved as username : whatever name I'm passing to the user, or maybe whatever I'm saved over here. But since I'm saying only name, my key is also name. My value is the actual value that the name stores. Okay, so these are the changes. Then again, run your application. In your application, if you have already signed, okay, so since my user was already saved, this data is stored in the Redux. So I'll show you the Redux store. Okay, so if you see my logged in user, yeah, so these are the details that my already state has. So these, if you see, will have the user details. Now I'll go to manage profile. In manage profile, you can enter your name. So let's say my name for now, I'm writing as Srush. If I save it, you will see the name is saved and Srush. And similarly, as soon as you see this message in your database, there's another entry based on the user ID, the name. I hope everyone is able to do this. I'll wait for like a few minutes. If you're facing any issues or any errors, do let me know in the chat. Now, since we have both the database set up, what we are going to do is we are going to go back to our home page. Now, in the code and home page, first we are going to do the add functionality. So in add, if you see, there is a handle add code. In handle add code, I've added a comment where you need to set data. So this is the code over here. So again, we have the set document functions, etc. So see, in the Firestore database, you have set doc, you have delete doc, you have collection, everything is included this. You just need to use these functionalities. So in set doc, so database. Now what is DB? DB is again the Firebase object that we have initialized using the app connections. Then passed it. Now ticked off is the collection ID that you have created. So this is the first collection ID. Then next is the new UUID. So what I'm doing is, okay, so instead of this, you will pass user.uid. Okay, so yeah, let me show you the code over here. Yeah. So user.user ID. Again, my next is the list of items. So sometimes it is fine even if you link the user ID without having the items and then directly use the new ID. So this what is going to create? It is going to create another unique ID inside my user ID and then all the items linked to it. But right now I want a separate field because maybe later on I want to add not just items, I want to add user information also. Maybe I want to add some other data. So you can change the key and use a separate collection over there. Items, user ID, and then pass name and genre. Again, since I'm not passing any keys to this, this is going to be my key and value this value as well. So once you have set doc, I'll maybe share this code in chat so that everyone has access to this. So once you have this, click save. And then you will also have to read the items. So this is going to just save the items. How are we reading it? So if you see, if you move above, that is a use effect. In use effect, you will see the collection. Now, how data Firebase works is whenever I'm, initializing a collection, a snapshot is created. Snapshot is whatever state of the Firebase database it is at that moment of time is read by my application. Now, the snapshot says that, okay, go to collection, which is the database object, go to TikTok. After TikTok, you again need to pass user.uuid. Send the code in this as well. Wait, I'll share the entire use effect so that you can just copy the use effect. So if you see, okay, so TikTok, then user.uuid and item. So this is the path that I'm going to read my collection from. And then it is then simply mapping the data to me, to save it in a state object. So once you are here, I think we are running out of time. So let's just do quickly. Okay, just go back to home page. Now in your item, you can just play around, maybe just try a few things. Let's say I'm trying Stranger Things over here. If you refresh, you will see a Stranger Things item already added. If you have added it to your database, since I've logged into TikTok, my user account is created over here. In my items, I have another collection, another document which has the name as Peaky Blinders. But if you're using your account, you will see Stranger Things if you have the collection IDs and all the unique IDs, right? If I let's say right again, just try adding few things series maybe or whatever you want to add, you will see another entry as soon as quickly. This hardly not even took a second. This happens in milliseconds. You don't need to write, worry about writing the database, reading the database, creating this UUID. Everything is already present for you. You just need to include the save code and read code. Now for delete, a simple thing, just one line. Instead of save, we are going to pass delete your collection, the main collection ID, your user.uid, items, and then again the ID of the object. So in the code, I have added a function where the delete button is returning me the ID. Now this ID is the collection ID for this particular collection. So for example, the Stranger Things ID is 889. So if you see in the UI also, you will see the ID over here. You can pass that to delete doc and the delete function is going to handle the code for you. You don't even have to worry about, finding the exact document, then going and deleting it, then saving everything is going to happen for you. Now, if you see the code as soon as you perform any function, the code gets reflected or the UI is updated very quickly, very often. This is because the objects that you have created, for example, the database objects, the auth objects, is actually tracking your code changes, your database changes in real time. So as soon as anything is updated in the in actual database, Firebase is going to send a notification. Okay, something is updated. Get the new snapshot. Get the new state of the data, new state of the Firebase store. and it is going to get updated over there quickly. Authentication also works same. If you click sign out, what is going to happen is the session details that were stored is going to get deleted. Even in your code, if you want to still delete, like, save state or the user state of application, you need to write that code for you, but that is going to happen. You need not worry about that as well. So right now what I'm doing is in sign out, I'm just clearing the state of my application. And then if for different user, there was a different state created. So it fetched a different data for me. Okay, now you want to see if, for example, if I just add something in this, let's say, give me auto generate, I add name as Pankari. If you see, you can see the changes. The color changes to green, something new is added. And as soon as this happens, if you see over here, if I refresh, okay, I think this is a different email ID. Okay, this is a different email ID. So the user data is not mixed since I'm using the UUID. What happens if I remove the UUID? My user data will get mixed, and I don't have any, for example, show the details. Yeah. So this is my user one, this is my user two. If I didn't have any user ID, all the items would be shown for any different user. So you can see the newly added data. This was not done through the UI. This was done through the backend. So that is also happening very smooth. You don't need to, every time get the details or do refresh the data as well. Let's try. If I actually don't need to refresh, I'll play around the database and see if my data is getting updated without a refresh. So my user was the 4WW user. Okay, I have spelled, let's say, Big Bang Theory wrong. So it should be, I'll just edit over here. It should be the Big Bang Theory. If I update over here, yeah, I did not refresh the page, but the data was updated. So this happens in real time. That's why it is said that Firebase database is always real time. You don't need to refresh. Firebase is going to tell your application itself the connections that you have created. Okay, something is updated, your database is updated, your auth has been updated. Get the latest data, get the latest snapshot, and it is going to work accordingly. Even here in managed profile, for example, I just changes this to Srushti Raybhoge. It is going to happen asynchronously. I don't need to update the details or update the page or refresh the page. Any queries until here? We have covered authentication, we have covered Firebase. Any queries, any doubts over here? So if no queries, no doubts, since we have almost over time, your homework is, I want you to implement either Firebase authentication, maybe GitHub authentication, because it's very simple. You just need to include a new button and add the functionality, and phone number authentication if you want to play around with phone number. Also edit list, because it's very simple. You need to have an edit button, change the UI based on the ID, you need to update that code, and add some different more user details. Maybe right now, if you see in my in the real-time database, for every user I just have name. Let's say I want to add user date of birth, my contact number. I want you to play around these functionalities and let me know. Maybe let your organizers know that you have successfully implemented this and you have understood Firebase better. If you have any queries or maybe any doubts, etc., later on, you could just connect with me on LinkedIn. I would be happy to connect one-on-one and resolve your queries. If you also have any doubts, while creating the projects or while working on Firebase, let me know. I hope everyone has understood, or this session was helpful and you got to learn new things about Firebase. Oh, yeah. Okay, I think due to time constraint, I was not able to share Firebase Studio. If we have time, can I just take 5-10 minutes and show how Firebase Studio works? Shall we? Okay, cool. Let me just quickly, because this is very exciting, because the application that I've shared, I have not created, not written a single line of code. Everything was done for me using Firebase Studio. That's why I said that just ignore the UI. It's very simple. I'll show you the home page. Over here you can say what app I want. It is going to get understand a prompt. It is going to show you, okay, this is the app, this is the schema, this is the details. You can, okay, use different languages. It's not just use React. I can create in Go, Python, Flask. If I want to create something in backend, I have Node.js, Next.js, I have Jenkit, Gemini, any app that you want to create. You can select the language and create a code. If I want, now since this is an already created code, I want to directly import it from my GitHub. I have an option to do that. I can just say import repository, put my repository URL, your project name if you want, and then just click import. And then you can work directly on the Firebase. You can see I don't even have to run the application. This is like hot reload. Anything that had changed over here is going to happen over here. I have not written any single line of code. I just told them, okay, include this functionality, include that functionality. It is going to work only if you are using some Firebase backend. Since I am in agent mode, this particular studio is not going to create me my project, not going to enable the features that I have to do on my own. Like for example, creating a new app, like creating a new project, or maybe adding different functionality. I need to enable that, giving different settings. For example, in authentication, I wanted some password settings that I need to do on my own. But then, for example, I want to change the background. Let's say change background blue. So it is going to walk and change the entire application's color to blue. It is not, I don't have to sit and find which page or where is the color, where is the color theme. I don't need to write the code. Now this is a simple functionality, like change background color. But imagine like creating this entire application in just 1 hour, which was possible because I just need to say, okay, for this particular application, create a home page. Home page should have these functionalities. Create a login page. The login page should have these functionalities. Okay, just login. I think it changed the color of the, yeah. So item list color, I will see change the, okay, so only you need to be aware of the prompts that you have given. For example, I gave it a very simple prompt, change the background color to blue. Since it was working on the list item, it just changed the list item color to blue. But if I need to change everything, I need to give a proper prompt. So my initial prompt was like a few lines of prompt which told me what each function or each page had to do. So I had a prompt saying that login should include these functionalities. Then I had a prompt, the user homepage should include these functionalities. The user tab should include these functionalities. So that's all I need to do. And the entire application was created hardly in 1 hour, which would probably had taken me a day to create or write the code and commit and then play around, etc. There's some error in my index. Yes. Okay. Any queries, any doubts? I hope everyone has understood or at least able to, play, enable or implement some of the functionalities that I shared so far. Also, like you guys said, you can connect me on LinkedIn and get more details, more information, and doubt clearing as well. Yeah. Hand over to the organizers, the host.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So I guess that brings us to the end of the episode 2 of our Tech Sprint Expert series. What an incredible session this has been. We explored Firebase authentication, learned how to connect our apps to Firebase databases, and gained valuable insights on integrating Firebase into real-world projects. So I'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Srushti Raybhoge ma'am for taking the time to share her expertise with us today. Ma'am, your insights as a Google developer expert in Firebase, combined with your practical approach to explaining complex concepts, have been invaluable. Thank you so much for covering a lot of the intense topics and details in the hands on. and making Firebase accessible and exciting for everyone here today. And I'm sure our participants will definitely work on their given homework. And to all of you who joined us today, thank you for your active participation throughout the session. Your engagement is what makes these sessions truly meaningful, and we are grateful to have such a dedicated community as part of our tech sprint. So before we close, I would like to request all of our participants to turn on their cameras so that we can capture this moment in a screenshot. So if you can, please turn on your cameras and we'll have a group screenshot right now.
I would also like to thank like Shalvi for connecting with me and hosting me for this session, and all the best, guys. I hope everyone actually implements something and takes away. Yeah.
Love to have you here today.
Yes, guys, if you can turn on your cameras, we would love to have you on our screenshot.
All right.
Great, great. We have got the screenshots. So just a quick reminder that if you like this session and you think this was helpful to you,